Welcome back to the Constantine Reviews with episode 6, Rage of Caliban. And not to tip my hat too early, it's incredibly standard Monster of the Week stuff, which is quite the disappointing downgrade from Midnight's Portent of Doom in the last episode. But there is still some interesting bits, which we'll get into. So let's begin. The episode begins at Halloween, appropriately enough, with incredibly cliched thick fog, which I hope is part of the house's decorations, otherwise that's really silly looking. Shouting and screaming is heard from the house, and inside the place is destroyed, with a woman dead under some rubble, while up above a bloodied and beaten man is suspended in mid-air. See, this is the kind of havoc that can be caused when Constantine's anti-gravity trap is released to the general public. But no, actually, as the man asks for everything to stop, he's released, and as he hits the floor dead, we see that a young girl has somehow managed to survive the chaos, completely unscathed. Oh, children are evil. I knew it all along. I've been saying it for years. Also, that was a really short opening. We didn't really get much information there. It was intriguing, but I would have liked a bit more. The police have arrived at the house, and a female officer consoles the girl, but her male colleague insensitively orders her back to her post. The woman wants to stay with the girl and argues with the other officer. However, while they argue, the young girl's eyes turn black, and then a cup explodes. What kind of officer points his gun at a child like that? Well, he is an American cop. Ooh, controversial. We then move to the morning after, and Constantine is woken up after a night of sleeping around, as the woman's boyfriend has come home, so he needs to scarp her pretty damn quick, which he manages, barely. That would be the first time we've seen Constantine in his relaxed sleeping around mode, which is... Wait, why are we seeing that from him now? Wasn't he told all your efforts are in vain in the last episode? He should be less relaxed, not more. This episode feels like it should have been sooner in the season because tonally, it doesn't really work with the previous one. But moving on, John is back at the Constantine cave trying to eat breakfast. However, Chaz insists on him using the blood map to find another case. John's not really interested, so Chaz takes his breakfast away.
Birmingham. We'll be there by lunch.
Yeah, why couldn't Chaz have just done that? It was just looking through a magnifying glass, no skill involved. We then shift to the town of Birmingham. Ha! Luckily for John, it's not Newcastle, as Chaz and John get to the house from earlier. Chaz recaps what happened, mentioning the young girl, and John wants to start there and figure out why she was spared. John breaks into the house to investigate, finding a greasy spot on the wall. What the hell was the point of that? But before we find out, Manny appears in all his winged glory, scaring the shit out of John.
You know, I've never punched an angel, but you are begging for it, mate.
I could announce my arrival with trumpets. Used to have an entire horn section back in the day.
That was a pretty funny line, actually. Who knew an angel had a sense of humour? John gets to the point and wants to know why he's there, and Manny tells him that battle plans need to be drawn and that John is going to stem the tide of the rising darkness's attacks. Wasn't Constantine already doing that? I mean, what the hell has he been doing for the last 5 episodes? Seemed pretty important to me. Yet more evidence to suggest that this episode should have been like episode 2 or 3, not 6 for God's sake. John asks what makes him so special, to which Manny says nothing at all. John's more a desperation move. Hey, at least he's not mincing his words at this point. Keen to get to the bottom of the current case, John asks Manny why the young girl was spared from the attack. But Manny can't just tell him that. No, that would be too easy. Claiming humanity's free will prevents him from interfering.
That's just the kind of double talk I expect from your type.
Yeah, I'm with John on this one. John sees the broken coffee cup and how it's smashed in an unusual way. Manny at last tells him he's warm, and needing to see what happened, John casts a spell with some lit parchment. The smoke shows him that the girl was possessed by an evil entity, and is now free, looking for a new host. Speaking of which, we then shift to a young boy screaming, telling his parents that someone is in his room. They look, but don't find anything. His mother tells him that it's just his imagination, with his father wanting him to be stronger and face his fears. He's left to go back to sleep, but typically, that's when something actually does appear, waking the boy up again. He sees a shadow in the curtains, which does look pretty creepy, honestly, and as the figure approaches, the boy screams again. But this time, when his parents come in to check if everything is alright, he gets noticeably creepier.
I'm feeling much better. You'll see.
Back with Constantine, he's in a bar when a woman approaches with information on the young girl at the start, but also numerous other children who have been in similar circumstances. Also, John and the woman talk like they've known each other for a long time. Which I think it would have been better if they hadn't have brought in a completely new character for this one scene, and instead brought back someone we've actually met, like Corrigan, or the woman from the Devil's Vinyl. It would have gave the scene a little bit more significance. The woman tells John he won't be able to get close to any of the children in the recent cases, but the earliest recorded one, a Marcello Panetti, is in his 40s and the best person to talk to. John reasons he might know the name of the spirit that possessed him, but the only problem is that Marcello is in the local mental hospital, which John admits he'll feel right at home. At the hospital, John speaks with an orderly about Marcello posing as a family member, and is told how Marcello took an axe to his father and fed his mother into a thresher. So a lot more severe than what we saw at the start. And actually not particularly supernatural sounding, which is a clue to the twist later on. The orderly also mentions that Marcello's father punished him quite severely when he was young, referring to an axe and a bloody tree stump. So Marcello's father pretty much deserved his fate. John gets talking with Marcello, making small talk, but he's pretty quiet. He tries to get answers, but John sees that Marcello is pretty much a vegetable, and spots he's missing a few fingers, so he's not getting any answers from him. Back with our child of the corn, the boy's father is woken up by a noise and investigates, while something sneaks around the house, and then the boy starts tapping a light bulb on the floor, for some unknown reason. The boy suddenly appears, making lights explode, causing his father to step into some light bulbs, breaking them. What the hell was the point of that? Did the kid or evil spirit have a sudden urge to be really creepy for no real reason? Not exactly subtle in keeping its presence a secret. Back at the mill, John goes over what he's figured out so far with Chaz, and John has marked out all the killings on a map.
Take a look at this.
What kind of map is that?
These are ley lines. Mystical trackways flowing with electromagnetic energy.
Ah, ley lines. One of the biggest pieces of pseudoscience bollocks there is. Let me give you a quick example of what I think of ley lines. Take a look at this map. That looks very mystical and as if there's something actually in this whole ley lines nonsense, until you actually realise that the map indicates a series of shops in the UK, which kind of proves that anything can have a pattern. But enough about me and my soapbox. John explains that the entity that's killing is using the ley lines, and all they need to do is follow the line to find the next victim. John looks for something to detect the spirit, but Chaz gets distracted by a pretty impressive sword in the collection, and when he picks it up, he starts acting strangely, talking about how he couldn't stop his wife from leaving. John takes the sword away to stop him from making a fool of himself, telling him that the sword of night, compels the holder to speak the truth. And once again, that sword is another clever reference to the DC Universe and another superhero by the name of the Nightmaster, who wields the Sword of Night. No idea why the sword is in the mill though, but it is a clever reference anyhow. John finds what he's looking for anyway, a sensor to detect spirits, and he better hurry, because back with the boy, he's about to carve pumpkins with his mother, but when she leaves and comes back, the boy, Henry, has smashed them, and completely silently too. Things then become darker as Henry's mother asks for the knife, with Henry looking to go all Michael Myers for a second, until he gives up the knife, but then makes a bird suicide bomb the window. I have to wonder what the spirit's game here is exactly, because if it's trying to take over the life of the child, then it's doing a really crap job at it. And if it just wants to kill them all, then why doesn't it just do it at the first opportunity? The spirit's motivations aren't particularly clear, which result in its actions just drawing out the running time of the episode, as opposed to any real character. That night, John and Chaz have gone spirit hunting, with John swinging the censer of frankincense around, in a not particularly subtle manner. The frankincense works by feeling malevolent energy, and it leads them both to the house where Henry lives. They decide to wait and watch for an attack. Not the best plan when you're trying to prevent that from happening. And speaking of which, back with Henry at the school playground, another boy bullies him, which Constantine is watching and calls for a teacher to intervene.
You got a couple of kids getting shirty over there.
What's in that trench coat?
I am.
Yeah, that was a stupid question. But I think Constantine is overlooking how suspicious it is for him to be standing outside a school playground watching the kids. John tries to convince the teacher that something bad is about to happen, and something bad happens, as Henry makes the merry-go-round spin and throws the bully into it, which is certainly a novel way of dealing with someone like that. Henry's parents tell him off for fighting, but his father defends Henry's actions, which starts another argument. However, the conversation is cut short as the doorbell rings, with Constantine at the door claiming to be the school's counsellor. And he keeps up that disguise for as long as it takes him to produce a mandrake root, causing Henry to freak out, confirming he has an evil spirit inside of him, all of which John tries to tell Henry's parents, but it ends the way you might expect.
You know what? I've got a better plan.
That might have gone better if Constantine didn't just completely throw off the facade as soon as he got the chance. Was scaring the shit out of everyone in the house really the best way to figure out whether the kid was possessed or not? And because of the terrible handling of the situation, Constantine is now in jail, the drunk tank specifically, feeling sorry for himself as he tells the drunk in the cell,
It only took me like 6 months in the loony bin to turn me into a body amateur.
John's mention of the mental hospital again makes me think this episode should have been earlier in the season, because he's still rusty and inexperienced, which is very different to how he was in the previous episodes. And while John talks, Manny appears. He's there to offer help, but John rejects this gesture, as he's got through life fine without him. And Manny retorts by implying that he was by John's side when his father abused him, or kept John from suicide, which certainly brings an interesting new light to Manny. Back with Henry, his parents are fighting about him, which causes Henry to have a slight angry outburst. To say the least. And this incident looks to have tipped his mother off that something is very wrong, and John might be right. So she goes to the jail and bails John out, asking for his help. John explains the case to her and that a child spirit like this one is very dangerous. He tells her that his plan is to find out the spirit's name, as that will bind it to a location. There is another option, forceful exorcism, but with a flash of Astra, John's not keen on that idea at all. Henry's mother gets back home, finding him drawing something that wouldn't be out of place in a serial killer's house. And bizarrely, Henry's mother trusts Constantine so much that she's now drugging her son, telling him it's a vitamin. Henry reacts angrily, realizing what's happening, just as the drug takes effect. Again, I seriously don't know what this spirit is trying to do. Is it trying to live again through a new host, or does it just want to kill everyone? There's evidence for both here. It's really irritating to have a villain that I don't think even it knows what the hell it's playing at. Henry's mother has got to Marcello Panetti's house with Chaz and John, who plan to bind the spirit to the house, because he doesn't yet know its name. They begin the ritual with John giving the incantation as we see Henry stirring in his sleep. However, something's wrong, as the ritual does absolutely nothing, only drawing a 3-legged deer into the house for some random reason. John's annoyed at the failure, but Chaz offers up the idea that maybe Marcello wasn't possessed at all and killed his parents on his own, but John's rigid faith in ley lines makes him insist that Marcello is key to this. Neither one of them think it might be both theories at the same time. John and Henry's mother return home, and she tells her husband that John will be performing the exorcism on Henry, which results in another argument, ending in Henry throwing a chair at his father. John quickly enchants a mirror, which bounces back the spirit's attacks, knocking Henry backwards as he runs off. Outside, Chaz tries to stop Henry, but he gets crushed between two cars with a sickening bone-crunching sound. For someone who seems to be immortal, Chaz does push his luck, and he does have a lot of trouble with ghosts, it would seem. John then chases Henry into the haunted house, trapping them both inside. Firstly, the fire axe is missing, so that's not a good sign, and walking through, John is assaulted by jump scares, until he finds Henry standing there creepily, but then the costume just falls empty on the ground in an impromptu Obi-Wan tribute. But one of the jump scare mannequins jumps up and smashes John's mirror, which on top of the 7 years bad luck, also means he's now defenseless. Henry appears with the axe, which is when John realizes that the spirit didn't possess Marcello, it is Marcello, as Henry starts throwing John around and levitating him, all while John taunts and antagonizes Marcello, which gives John the opportunity to grab Henry and exorcise Marcello from his body, as he gets back to normal. And the episode ends with Henry getting back home safe, and narration from John tells us that a soul can't cross over while its body's still alive, so he sent Marcello to the only place he could, which we see the now grown-up Marcello losing his shit. But at least he's in a secure facility. Also, this will be the first time we actually see John light up a cigarette. So that was episode 6, Rage of Caliban, and it's definitely the worst episode of the show so far. It's a pretty standard story with nothing particularly interesting. It's not terrible, it's just nothing of note. Especially because of the constant feeling that this should have been episode 2. Because come to think of it, Zed's not in the episode either. Granted, it's explained, but it's just more evidence to my theory. Also, what the hell does Rage of Caliban even mean? It wasn't mentioned at all. But despite this subpar episode, the series will definitely be picking up from now on, starting with episode 7, Blessed Are the Damned. So until then, see you next time.